Hello and welcome to another episode of the Diet Obsessed podcast. I am your host, Veronica Santarelli. I am a certified personal trainer, nutrition and weight loss coach, and this podcast is for those of us who are just obsessed with everything related to improving health and longevity, with a special emphasis on food, fitness, and diet culture. All right, let's get into the show. But first, if you want to support this show, there's a few ways you can do that. This is one of my free shows. I do 2 free shows every other week, and then every other week I do a premium content show. So you can subscribe to that through Patreon, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also leaving a rating or review for this show. And if you listen on YouTube, that also is immensely helpful if you just click that subscribe button. That doesn't cost you a thing on YouTube. And I would greatly appreciate your support. All right, everyone, let's get right into my mental health check-in. So this week has been a good mental health week. This is the first week that I'm not doing personal training anymore in a formal capacity. My last day was last Saturday, or the Saturday before that actually was my very last day. And again, I'm so grateful to Jose and the opportunity he gave me there. And of course, I miss my clients, but it has been amazing just getting more sleep. And, when I have to go into the office and I'm leaving, and not getting home till past 10 p.m. I used to have so much anxiety about getting to bed and trying to get that 4 hours of sleep, and also a whole year of having not enough sleep is not healthy for you. It's just not good for you. You're always hearing about how if you're not getting enough sleep, it can cause dementia. And for anyone who's been listening to me for a while, I'm all about anything that can prevent dementia. So I'm very, very happy to not have to get up at 3 a.m. anymore. And, I'm still getting up around 6 a.m. My body is naturally getting up at 6 a.m. I have to be to my first job. I just picked up more hours at my second job. But I don't have to start there till 7:30. And it's so funny. I used to just be a disaster if I had to start that early. Now it's like, nothing. Because I conditioned myself to get up for training clients that extra early. So anyway, so that's going, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just really, really, really enjoying this extra time. Like today, for example, I did just get out of my other job, but I have like an hour and a half in between this and starting my full-time job. And so it's just nice to be able to knock this out in between and to feel not stressed about having to fit this podcast in anymore I was having a fine time with it on that Tuesday. Today happens to be Thursday. And just as a reminder, there are 5 Sundays this May, in this month. So there will be 1 month without one Sunday, most likely without a podcast. I was going to skip this Sunday, but I decided to just get it done. So I may do a cooking show. We'll see. We'll see if I get that accomplished. But anyway, getting back to my mental health check-in, my boyfriend's company is starting to do better. So that's always a good thing. He's in a better mood. And it's hard when your partner's not in a good place because it does affect you, and, their stress sometimes can become your stress if you let it. I try not to let that happen, but it's always nice when your partner's also thriving. So that's been good. I have been following, I mentioned this in my last show, but pretty soon we are going to be getting an F Factor, a lawsuit update. So for those of you that have been following me, again, I'm very into law and crime, and this F Factor lawsuit that happened literally, 5 or 6 years ago is finally going, it sounds like depositions are finally happening. So I'm very, very excited to see the outcome of this lawsuit. I think this one, so Emily Gellis is the fashion influencer that decided to take on Tanya Zuckerbrot's F Factor company. And this was that high fiber protein powder that was causing a lot of gastrointestinal issues in certain populations. And the owner of that company, Tanya, did not handle it well. And again, this was when the whole body positivity movement was happening, and there was just a lot of backlash on wealthy people, especially wealthy white women, that were posting a lot and showing their influence, and then also or their affluence, and not really caring about other things, like other, whether it's people that are less fortunate than you, or in larger bodies. And again, this was a very specific time. And of course, now we're living in a backlash to that period of time, which is not necessarily a good thing. But it's just seemed that our country, anyway, does go from one extreme to the other. So anyway, so that's going to be interesting to see the outcome of this, because out of all the murder trials, all of the crazy, trials I follow that are mainly murder, this one is the most frivolous. Although maybe Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. Are you guys following this? Again, I know this is not a pop culture moment, but again, when you think of the mental health aspect that happens to people going through lawsuits, it is detrimental to your happiness every day. It just is. And, when I went through my lawsuit, and if you don't know about that, if you're new here, it's back in the archives, probably a full year and a half of going through my lawsuit, which I won, by the way. But all of the drama, all of the trauma, all of the sleepless nights, all of the feeling wronged, and not knowing what the outcome could be, right? Because sometimes the law does not go the way that you think it should. And, and that's why I think I've been following some of these trials so fervently, because I'm like, oh my God, is this person going to get away with murder? In my trial, I knew I was right. And I was just so scared that, like, what would happen to my mental health if I lost my lawsuit against this, the largest company in my space at the time in the world. So anyway, the Blake Lively, just, her sexual harassment claims got thrown out. And again, it's like, I am such a female empowerment, believe women. And when I saw this whole lawsuit happening, I'm like, because I was listening to the Toast podcast talk about it, and Claudia Oshry is very pro Blake Lively and a support system for her. She's like, believe women, believe the sexual harassment claim. And when I looked at the details on it, I'm like, she is voicing the things that she's not happy with in terms of what's happening on set, whether it's she doesn't want people walking into her dressing room or whatever it is. It seems like she was actually voicing those complaints, and they were addressed by Justin Baldoni. I'm like, I don't get it. If you are speaking your truth about any, behavior that's happening towards you, and you're expressing it, and it's handled and addressed, and there's actions taken to prevent that or to kibosh that, put a kibosh on that, isn't that the right thing? Like, why is there a lawsuit now if all of these complaints were addressed in that moment? That's what I didn't get. And I think you could see that for me, I thought that she wanted to take control. So she had the control of the other movies in that series, because it would have been, if the lawsuit hadn't happened, it probably would have been continuous, huge movie, because I guess that book is a series of books. So anyway, so now and again, like, there's all kinds of podcasters talking about this, so I'm not going to go into all the details, but it sounds like, her friendship with Taylor Swift has been affected, because Taylor's text messages were part of the discovery. And, and again, I've gone through my own drama with friendships in my life, and I know just my little things that are happening in my own little world are very mentally tasking. And I don't have children. And, Blake Lively has 4 kids. I mean, imagine on this huge display in front of America, everyone's realizing, oh, she's not going to Taylor's wedding. Oh, Taylor's not friends with her anymore. Oh, she didn't go to the Super Bowl. Like all these things, or she didn't go to these big football games. So I can imagine that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, they're both suffering in terms of mental health right now. That's how I'm going to tie this back into the segment, because it's true. It's true. You can't go through a lawsuit, whether you're bringing the lawsuit and feel like you've been wronged, or whether you're, receiving a lawsuit and you're like, oh fuck, I got to deal with this now. So anyway, may the truth prevail. That's all I'm going to say. The last thing, actually 2 more things I want to touch on in my mental health check-in. If you want a good mental health follow, okay, Cheese Gal, at Cheese Gal. She is I love following this woman. So she loves cheese, she loves wine, she loves entertaining. She puts together these beautiful charcuterie trays. And her flavor profiles are definitely not exactly mine. Like, she'll do the big, cause she loves cheese. Obviously the title of her handle is Cheese Gal. And I'm not super, super into cheese. I've now grown and I do like some cheeses, but certainly I do not have the palate for all of these French cheeses and all these varieties of cheeses that she does. And she'll do the salty and the sweet. And so she'll take this, this cracker, and she'll put a big thing of cheese on it. And she'll do the drizzle of honey with a little prosciutto and a little piece of fig. And it's like, this perfect bite. And, and she'll have her beautiful glass of rosé and her home. I don't know where she lives. I really want to know where she lives. But this home that I think they bought recently and are designing, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful, the details, and so she's very like a lifestyle branding woman, and she's the one that I told you flew to Paris and literally brought an empty suitcase for French butter, which I now need to try. So anyway, she is a really good follow. I would highly recommend following her. And then the last thing I will say is, for anyone that follows me on Instagram at the Diet Obsessed Podcast, go follow me. You would have seen a couple days ago these little bunnies in my yard. I call them my yard bunnies. And they live in this huge cactus. We have this huge cactus that is in our front yard. And these 3 bunnies, this little family, live like within the undercarriage of this massive cactus. And so, I'll sometimes, like when I'm in my office, I'll just sit there watching them. And I'm like, and I'm always hoping that they come a little closer to the window, or they'll hang out doing stuff. Cause I just love watching animals and nature and birds. I just love it all, right? I'm a nature freak. And so I took some carrots and I threw them out in strategic places, and then they found them and they're sitting there nibbling on them. It was so cute. So I did share that on Instagram. So for anybody that does get mental health relief from watching little innocent animals eat, follow me at the Diet Obsessed Podcast. And that is my mental health check-in of the week. All right, let's get into a surgical situation. Now, again, for those of you who know me, sometimes I have very educational topics and sometimes I have purely vapid topics. And this is going to be one of those vapid topics. So I was watching this YouTube video about women that had BBLs and regretted them. Now, I'm very interested in all types of cosmetic surgery, but the BBL specifically is very fascinating to me in terms of I would never do it. It's very dangerous. I think now there's a lot more knowledge about how dangerous this surgery truly is. And of course, the Kardashians made this look popular, the teeny tiny waist, the big booty. And I don't know if these are much older videos, and whether this is still as popular. I think it's become less popular as the now skinny craze of Ozempic is taking effect. But the biggest thing that stood out, and you saw all these different women, the pain. I mean, the pain that these women are going through. And there was a guy on there that didn't seem to be having as much pain, and he was very happy with his results. But like, you can't sit. I mean, some of these women weren't sitting for months. Sleeping, like, you can't sleep on, you have to sleep on your stomach with like a special pillow. I don't know if you can sleep on your side. Like, I'm a side sleeper, but can you imagine how being so uncomfortable? You can't sleep, you can't sit. You have to buy this like special pillow and seat so that you can sit. And you saw some of the women talking about how much pain they were in just from the BBL. Because apparently when you get a BBL, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll also do some liposuction around your midsection so that you get that smaller waist along with the more dramatic butt. And then some women would get some liposuction on their arms. And what they had to do after was they had to go get these massages. So it was talking about the cost, the pain, the aftercare. Like, you have to go get these really painful massages so that you're not lumpy and so everything drains properly. And they would be talking about this incredible pain and again, how much money they were spending on all these additional treatments. This one woman, I don't know why she did this to herself, because you're seeing how much pain people are in just from the BBL. But this woman did BBL. She had liposuction all over her body. She did a tummy tuck, and I think some sort of like chin implant or some sort of facial surgery too. And I'm like, she's like, I've done 2 bags of morphine and I still can feel the pain. And she's just a shell of a human being. And her lashes are literally like touching the screen. They're just, and you're like, why? Oh my God. And actually, a woman towards the end of the video, I think, said it very well. She had waited to get her BBL and to get some of her surgery until she had worked on herself. She's like, if I had gotten this surgery, before I loved myself and my own body, before if I'd gone through those breakups or were trying to like get back at him or do it for all the wrong reasons, she's like, I would have been chasing that the rest of my life. And she's like, I waited until I had worked on my body. I like lost a lot of weight naturally through lifestyle changes. She's like, I went through therapy. She's like, I was in a really good mental place when I made this decision. She's like, and don't go to the surgeon that you can afford. Go to the surgeon that you have to work for. She goes, because you do not want to save money on plastic surgery. And she was right, because again, a lot of the women that were in this video, this one woman where she had seen her friend who had gone down to Mexico get the surgery and everything went well for her. She looked great. So she didn't do any research. She just booked with the same surgeon. No research. This person was not trained, not board certified. And she had a botched job. She was lumpy. She's like, one was larger than the other. And then she went back to the same doctor to try to get it fixed and, made it worse. And she just, some of these women are like, I wish I had never done this. I wish I had, all this pain, all this, money, and I can't even. And sometimes they don't look good at the end of it. That just... they talked about the constipation from all the opiates that they had to take. And one woman's like, oh, I like tested my man to see if he'd wipe my ass. And he did a good job. He got all the shit off me and he was like joking about it. And it was a test to our relationship. And I'm like, that's my worst nightmare. No, thank you. I do not want that. And look, it is good if you have a partner that will take care of you, right? Of course. But all for the BBL 9 Danke. No, thank you. this other woman had gotten lipo on her stomach, and she's like showing the camera. She's like, these two spots, she's like, that's water. She's like, that's fluid. She's like, I'm going to get a massage and they're supposed to be able to work those out, but if they can't, she's like, they'll just stick a needle in there and drain it. And I'm like, oh my God. And in general, like that's, I guess, like lumpiness from liposuction is very common. Little pockets and bubbles of fat that don't look good. And I've even seen, because Lauren Bostick from, we were on the Skinny Confidential. They just rebranded to the Bostics. She had gotten this thing called Air Sculpt, which is supposedly less invasive kind of form of lipo. And even in their professional videos, right, that they post on Instagram and they're like, oh, this is the before, this is the after. The afters to me don't look good. They don't look natural, right? They don't, like, it looks, to me, I feel like I can see the lumps even in their after pictures on the best pictures they're trying to use. I'm like, I don't want to get that. So again, if I had to lose fat, I'd probably do a GLP-1 or something so that I didn't have all that lumpiness. Or, hey, go to the gym, right? Some of these girls were like, oh, I just wished I had gone to the gym more. Then there was this girl who, she looked like she was in her 20s. Now, she's talking about all this stuff that she's had done. She could be in her 30s, but she looked like she was in her 20s. And she was talking about all the things. And this video is also about like the cost, like how much people are actually spending on these things. And she's like going through her makeup routine as she's doing it. She's like talking about how she gets Sculptra and she gets her Botox and she gets like trapezius Botox and just so she had CO2 under her eyes and she had like blepharoplasty and she obviously gets her lips done and her just so much stuff. I wanted to say it was around like $6,000 that she spends pretty much every year on some of this stuff. There were women showing their Sephora hauls, all the products that they use on their makeup. $700. Insane. So, and there was this other woman who, now she looked really good. She was like, don't go and get a natural BBL. She goes, these doctors, she's like, they're going to make it look too natural. She's like, and she showed what she had. And to me, it looked like the perfect BBL because it was clearly not natural, right? Like you could definitely see it was so round that and big that you're like, that doesn't look natural. And she had a tiny waist, but what she wanted was even tinier waist and an even more protruding ass. And I'm like, girl, are you serious? And again, this has to be body dysmorphia because some of the desires of these women and what they're looking for, if you see this in real life, there was one woman that was like, oh my God, I just saw a BBL in real life. And she's like, and she's just horrified. Like that was what the video was just the horror on this woman's face. And I did see, now of course I'm getting these BBL videos in my algorithm. And there was this one video like making fun of this poor woman who clearly had a very, 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 very botched job in like Tijuana or something. I mean, her ass was just this lumpy blob that I cannot even describe it. It was jiggling. Her legs were like these sticks sticking out of this massive blob on her butt. Again, the horror. So that is, I think it's always just a good reminder to slow down, do less, right? And then, of course, there's a lot of videos. Kris Jenner's $300,000 facelift is slipping and people are mad. And this specific, I think they call it a SAM facelift, is different than the full plane facelift. And the full plane facelift or the deep plane facelift is so much better. And this is why. And you have all these opinions. People are like, well, actually, she was just very swollen when she first got it done. And of course, you're going to look tighter and fuller and firmer when you're swollen. And then you have the reality of what sets in. And they were saying that when you get a facelift in your 70s, you kind of have to expect that it's not going to look like you're 40 years old, right? And so, anyway, I think it's really a lot of, I don't know that it's real. I think people are just like to trash on the Kardashians because of how much money they have and how they're able to do all this work and not break the bank. So anyway, that was my surgical situation of the week. All right, let's get into some nutrient news. Now, I wanted to play this clip. It's from Dr. Ids, who's that doctor who kind of debunks a lot of these influencers who are perpetuating false or misleading information on the internet. And a lot of these people that he debunks, some of them have credentials and some of them don't. Some of them are just non-credentialed health influencers that are spouting bullshit, and he'll call them out. And then other times they are famous doctors or very influential people that are trusted sources in the industry. And this one was about Dr. Mark Hyman. And his whole point here is he's kind of cherry picking the evidence and what it means, and not necessarily kind of something like you have an agenda of pushing forth how meals that are higher in protein and fats as opposed to carbs, keeping a very low carb diet is best. And what Dr. Ids didn't like about this video or this podcast that Dr. Hyman was on is he took the research, but he didn't speak 100% truthful about the research. Like, he's trashing on oatmeal, but he doesn't say that, there were all kinds of sugar added to these instant oats, and that they didn't talk about how the omelet had a lot of fruit with it, and and carbs from some of the whole foods, right? And so he's kind of calling him out, saying like, yeah, Mark, like, you're pushing forth this high protein, high fat agenda, yet the research that you're showing, the omelet that ended up being the meal that kept people more satiated had a good source of carbs in it. And so anyway, so here's the clip.
There's one profound study done by my friend David Ludwig at Harvard, where he took a group of overweight young guys, kids, teenagers, and he gave them 3 different breakfasts, exactly the same calories: oatmeal, steel-cut oats, omelet. And then he locked them in a room. They measured their blood every hour, and they tracked everything. And they said, when you guys are hungry, push this button, we'll bring you more food. So they can eat whatever they want. The oatmeal group not only had higher levels of insulin, cortisol, adrenaline, which is the stress hormone. So eating oatmeal literally was like being chased by a tiger in your body. Your body didn't know the difference. It actually made these kids hungrier, and they ate 81% more food than the omelet.
Don't you love it when Mark Hyman goes on podcasts and misrepresents research? Time for school. So this is the 1999 study he's referring to, where they took 12 obese teenage boys and gave them instant oatmeal, where they added 19 grams of pure dextrose sugar on top. And they added lactase enzyme to the milk to further break down the sugars in milk into simple sugars. And the time they had the omelette, it wasn't just protein and fat like he claimed. They were also given 115 grams of apple, 185 grams of grapefruit, as well as spinach, tomato and cheese on top of the omelette. So basically they were given a balanced meal with protein, fats, carbs and fibre, and somehow we should be surprised that that meal kept the kids more full than the pure sugar instant oatmeal. The irony is the omelette meal had more calories coming from carbohydrates than it did protein and fat, but he won't mention that, will he? This is how people misrepresent research when they have a strong low-carb bias. So if we look at actual research on oats, like this meta-analysis of 59 controlled human studies, we see that oats actually improve blood lipids, body weight and waist circumference. So stop crapping on oatmeal. Class dismissed.
Now, if someone were to use organic whole oats, not instant oats, and add, walnuts and berries and, maybe some Greek yogurt, that can be just as nutrient dense and, filling and satiating as the omelet choice, right? I think and they were doing research, right? They wanted to show a huge juxtaposition. And so, I think it does. It does show, right? They could have done it with a sugary cereal, because that is the reality of a lot of households, is their kids might eat a bowl of sugary cereal. I think they should have used that as a more realistic, understanding of what's happening in our society today and what is driving obesity in children. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting clip, and also just kind of points to, take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research. I think it's just hard because most research has opposing research, right? So even when I was in my former industry, I'll be honest, I did put forth more of the evidence that supported my agenda, right? That I think that is natural for people to do. But you also have to show the other side as well. I think that's always important. The other thing that just brought something that watching this video brought up when talking about instant oatmeal, something that I have become very, very hyper aware of. And clearly I've been influenced by all these microplastics that are getting into our food supply, into our bodies. And I try to limit my plastic use just because I care about the environment, right? But I think, and years and years ago, I was so not as aware of all of the harm that all of these preservatives and all the chemicals that they put in these processed foods, and how some of that can cause some of the chronic illness and dementia and all these things. And so after becoming aware of all that stuff, I am more hesitant to, like, when I look, like yesterday, for example, I'm in the office, I'm bored. My boss has this snack drawer, and you can go in, and I've been trying to stay away from that snack drawer because it's full of just junk. And last night I took a couple pretzels because I wanted something salty and crunchy. But I have taken, when I was kind of like in my off phase and eating a lot of just junk food, there was a cinnamon roll or something, not cinnamon roll, but one of those little coffee cakes. And I love coffee cake. Oh my God. I just had the best coffee cake recently, but it was from Chompy's, and it was a freshly baked piece of coffee cake, right? That's very different from what's sitting in my boss's drawer. And it's been there for months and months and months. And you think about that. You think, okay, this is a baked good. This is something that has been baked in the oven, and it's lasting months because of these chemicals that are added to it, and it's packaged in all this plastic. And what I've noticed is that on the occasion I will eat from that package, I am now hyper aware of the smell and the taste of plastic. And some of this stuff is more noticeable than others. I think if you've had products that have sat on shelves for a long time and have been in different temperatures, like especially if they've been warm temperatures, maybe some of that plastic is melted, or just, even if it just warms a few degrees, like what does that do in terms of how it's interacting with the food? So I recently, I'm like, I'm eating this and I'm literally tasting plastic. Disgusting. So it's actually turned me off to a lot of the pre-packaged ultra processed foods, because I've just now I'm like, ew. Again, still very into indulgent things. And of course there's a lot of ultra processed things that I love, but I am noticing that more. And you are now aware that so many of these microplastics are coming into our bodies. We don't know, we can't tell, we can't smell it or sense it or see it. But when you can smell it and you can taste it, can you imagine how much plastic is in that food? when you can taste it and you can smell it, oh my God, I can't even imagine. Anyway, that is my nutrient news segment of the week. All right, let's get into my healthy habits of the week. All right, now let's focus first on working out. So I've been able to be very consistent. Now is usually the time I'd be working out, like on a day like today. I will try to get something in on one of my breaks, most likely, or like at my desk. I have been, because now I'm not getting up and I'm not active moving a lot of weights, what I've started to do is, I'm sitting a lot, right? I'm sitting for at least probably 12 hours a day. And so what I've started doing is getting up and doing those 10 squats, that they say now, like try to get 10 squats every hour if you're sitting. Now I'm not good at getting them consistently every hour. What I end up doing is, I might 3 or 4 hours might pass and I'm like, oh, I got to do some squats, and I might do 40 or 60 and then do another 40, 50 later. So that's been, I think, a good thing that I'm starting to incorporate to counteract some of the sitting that is not good for you. I have had time to finally fix my hip. Oh my God, my hip got so messed up from that 1 week where I walked and walked and walked. I think I got like 14,000, well, no, I think it was like 14,000 steps in one day. And I had many days like that. And again, there's something off in my gait. I do want to work with some sort of posture, but also running and walking specialist. I got to find somebody that can fix my I don't know. There is a way that I'm moving that is not correct. And maybe I just need to see a physical therapist. I'm not sure. But for the longest time, I had a limited range of motion in my left hip. It was almost like, and I could feel it sometimes popping back into place. That's how I describe it. I'd feel like, oh, it popped. And then I'd have a better range of motion at that point. But then it would almost like, I call it like I say it, oh, it caught again. And again, I don't know exactly what's happening, but I was able to do a lot of the butterfly stretches and a lot of like hip mobility stretches, and they're finally back to normal. Thank God. So now I'm doing a lot of rolling out, and again, I have time now. So I'll roll before the workout, I'll try to roll after the workout, and not too much either. So I hate getting injured, and having hip problems is no fun. So I just want to continue to work on those areas. I'm definitely carrying a little more fat than I'd like to be carrying. I talked about it on my last VIP episode. I am, and I know I'm getting sucked into this. I'm not calling it, it's not a fad diet. And the reason I'm not calling it, it is a trendy thing happening right now. It's the sardine diet. And I do realize that this is like this trendy thing that people are doing now. And at first when I saw this, I'm like, disgusting. I could never do that. I do get the benefits though, right? It's high protein. They're full of, important minerals and essential vitamins and nutrients that we need, good fats, omega-3s. So I get why that specific choice of protein is being used. And I saw this woman, she did a 3-day fast on it. It's supposed to boost your ketones, right? And that's your body using its own stored fat for energy. That's what I want. I want my body to pull some of this belly fat out of my lower belly, use it as energy. Because I can feel, like when I do put on a 5 to 8 pounds, I can feel it. I can feel that excess fat jiggling on me. I can feel it. I'm very in tune with my body. It doesn't feel great. Now I do have a good amount of muscle too, but I do feel better when I have a little bit less fat, like especially on my midsection. So I am contemplating that. I mean, because Prolon was a sponsor for so long, I do very much, and I've done several topics on the benefits of fasting and how it can clear out all of that cellular damage. And again, I would like my body to use some of its stored fat as energy. So it would be, now I saw this woman doing it. She was on it for 3 days, and she was just, the last day she was choking that sardine down. She just did not want to eat it. She was like, I don't know, you saw her chewing it. She's like, my kids are eating beef and eggs in the other room. She's like, I'm so jealous. It's funny how when you're doing something very restrictive like that, just the simplest thing sounds so delicious, like an apple. Or I remember when I was doing the Prolon thing, I'm like, I miss cucumbers so much, just like the cucumbers. And so, but I think what I would do if I did this, I would air fry the shit out of it. I would chop it up. I would air fry it. And I think if it was crispy, because it's going to be salty, which I love salt. I think if it's crispy, I might be able to eat it easier. So we'll see. I don't know. There's moments I get into this like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then there's moments I'm like, no, I can't do that. So we'll see. I would love to do a fast for another 5 days and try to do at least 3 days of salmon and then incorporate like some eggs and some beef. So we'll see. No promises. I'm not going to commit to this yet. I did my month of no processed sugar. No, I did my month of whole foods. So here's the thing. During that month of whole foods, I always let myself eat as much as I want because it's whole foods. Obviously, you're not going to lose a lot of weight if you're not in a calorie deficit, and you'll gain weight even if you are eating whole foods, but it's excess calories. Your body is going to store that excess sugar. So I will say, so the other day I've been really enjoying this strawberry Greek yogurt bowl. And now that I've been trying to incorporate local honey for my allergies, I'm like, this is perfect. It takes me a long time to eat. It's delicious. It's satisfying. It's got a lot of protein in it. So what I've been doing is chopping up a lot of strawberries, drizzling it with my local honey, putting in a full container of Greek yogurt, and then putting coconut, organic, unsweetened coconut shreds on top. Now, I love this coconut. I freaking love it so much. And I had a feeling that bowl was part of why I probably gained a little bit of weight or didn't really lose much during that period. So what I'll do is I'll put on a good amount. I wasn't measuring anything. I'm usually not someone that likes to measure. I have a good sense of what a portion is. But if I do want to really know, okay, how many calories are in this thing I'm going to eat? So I finally did the math the other day. And so I had 18 strawberries in it, or 17. I did a tablespoon of honey. Now, a tablespoon of honey is actually a good amount, and it only has 60 calories in it. So that was actually pleasantly surprising. I thought it had maybe 120, kind of like a fat would, but it has much less. And then my Greek yogurt, it's about 130 calories. And then now the amount of coconut. This is what throws it all off, because a quarter of a cup of coconut is 220 calories, okay? And 1/4 of a cup is not enough for me. So I sprinkle that on. I'm like, okay, this is what it is with this 1/4 of a cup. So then I put on another 1/4 of a cup. So now we're at like 700 calories. If I use a half a cup, 2 servings of coconut, that ended up being around 700 calories. Now, I wanted a 1/3 of a cup. I wanted to use 3/4 of a cup of coconut. That would have made it 920 calories. So, and I know there's one that I made before this that probably had 1,200 calories because I used so much coconut. And it was delicious. I mean, it was so good. I cannot, because once you, like, because I eat it over, I don't eat it all at once. I spread it out. I usually eat it over a few hours. And every time I'd put it in the fridge, it would get a little liquidy and I'd put more coconut in and I'd mix it up. And by the time I was towards the end, it was almost like this coconut strawberry icing almost. It was so good. But it had a ton of fat, a ton of calories. And that's why I love it. so, but I can be satisfied with a half a cup. So really that bowl, if I'm going to be satisfied and eat that bowl, it's like a 700 calorie bowl. And that's fine. It's all really good. There's lots of fiber, there's lots of protein, there's all kinds of good, healthy nutrients in it. But it is something that you want to think about. Like if you are trying to be in a calorie deficit to try to lose a little fat, you're not going to do it if you're overeating even the healthy whole foods, right? So anyway, so that was a learning experience for me. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is, so I mentioned before that I've been doing this Asian bowl where I'll make my healthy chicken tenders with a little bit of panko and cheese. I'll bake these healthy chicken tenders, and then I'll make some white rice, some jasmine rice, and I'll put a little bit of rice and I'll chop up the chicken and I'll put some of the soy sauce with the chili onion in it. And that's a really good, very carby, but very satisfying Asian bowl. Now, I just added the most delicious element that put this bowl over the top. So I've talked about how I made a homemade ginger miso dressing, which is to die for. So I had some of that, and then I had this leftover cabbage, and I'm like, oh, I bet that would be good in this bowl, because I've been wanting some vegetables in there to have a nice, well-balanced bowl. And because sometimes I just get lazy and I'm like, I'll just eat the chicken and rice. But I've been wanting, I'm someone that likes that perfect bite that does have that crisp vegetable or green vegetable added. Like, it just makes me more satisfied. And it's visually pleasing and texturally pleasing and delicious. There's usually a little bit of acidity, some vinegar, something like that. So I shredded this green cabbage and I put a little bit of the ginger miso dressing. You guys, bite of the rice that has a little bit of soy in that, chili oil with a little bit of that crunchy chicken, and that bite of that ginger miso crunchy cabbage salad. Oh, I was like, I am a chef. I am a chef. Chef's kiss. So fucking good, you guys. I am so satisfied by this meal. And I put it together myself. I'm so proud of myself. Because bowls, usually when I get bowls out, sometimes I'm picking things out or I'm asking for things not to be included. And this bowl, I'm telling you, I need to start a food truck and put this bowl on it. So good. And then I did treat myself to some new leg bands. So I had these thin bands that I would use to work out that ended up snapping and breaking and hitting me. And I ended up finally getting some of these big, thick leg bands so that I can work my booty and I can work my legs and I can do it in a way that is not going to injure my hips or injure my hamstring or put too much strain on. So I'm going to be working on my legs. That's going to be a little place that I want to see some better results. So anyway, those were my healthy habits of the week. I hope all of you have had some great healthy habits this week yourselves. All right, let's get into my tasty treats segment. Now I'm going to focus on one meal for this segment because I need to describe this sandwich that I made. OMG, you guys. Again, Chef Veronica over here. Now, look, I like to do copycat recipes. I'm not that creative. I'm certainly not someone that is one of these like cooking gurus that can just come up with all these different food combinations. I need inspiration, I do. And I do like to make things my own though. Like I like to just put a little twist on it according to my tastes. So I told you guys that we've been going to Mendocino Farms that just opened here. I used to go in LA. Best sandwiches, such good flavor combinations, and sandwiches that, again, I like a simple sandwich, but the way they put together the combinations of their sandwiches are so unique and just packed with texture and flavor and a lot of ingredients that I love. So some of the stuff that I've ordered there, I haven't had to change a thing. And the things that I was more attracted to were like the kale avocado crunch sandwich wrap, or the superfood crispy rice chicken bowl or something like that. Chad, of course, likes his steak sandwiches, his meat lovers type of thing. And I do like beef, right? I like bacon, but I'm very anal about the bacon. It has to be super crispy and thin. And so I usually would never order a steak sandwich out because I can't control the amount of fat. Like if I'm making the sandwich, I can cut off all the little bits of fat. I can make sure I'm not going to like bite into a hard, not like ball of fat and get it stuck in my teeth, which is just a terrible experience. Let's be honest. So, and some people don't mind that, right? Some people love that fat. So what I did, so this was a take on what was it called? The chimichurri steak and bacon sandwich. And their recipe called for an herbed aioli. It had romaine, it had tomatoes, it had an onion jam, and then it had the chimichurri steak and bacon. So what I did, because I hate mayo, so instead I decided to make an herbed butter. So I chopped up some fresh garlic and I had some soft butter and I mixed in the fresh garlic, a good amount. I love my garlic, and some oregano. And it just smelled so delicious and herbaceous. And I had this baguette from Trader Joe's that I've been saving. Trader Joe's has incredible baguettes. So good. So I spread a very, very thin layer of butter, okay? So that was waiting to be toasted, the bread. And then I made a homemade chimichurri sauce. Now, I've never made a chimichurri sauce, and I've had chimichurri sauces out at restaurants. I'm always attracted to a green sauce, whether that's a pesto sauce, whether that's a guacamole. I love it. And I've had chimichurri sauces that aren't that flavorful. You know, like there's been times that they're very flavorful, and then there's some times that they're just not flavorful at all. And I'm feeling like, is this just parsley and oil? Sometimes they tasted like that. Well, this recipe had optional, like two of the ingredients that were optional were red chili flakes and shallots. And I'm like, I'm definitely adding this stuff. So it had fresh parsley. It had olive oil. I actually used the Thai chilies, the dried Thai chilies, so extra spicy. I chopped up a shallot. I love shallots. What else did it have? I think it had a little bit of red wine vinegar in it. Garlic. I think that's it. You guys, this is the best chimichurri sauce. Not to toot my own horn, it wasn't my recipe. I'll have to find out who the recipe. If any of you want the recipe, just DM me and I'll share it with you. Oh my god, this chimichurri sauce! I could have drank it. It was so freaking good, so flavorful, spicy, so good. So I got that. And now Chad makes fun of me. The type of bacon I like, I do not like to cook bacon, like fry it in a pan. It's like the oil spattering everywhere. So Trader Joe's has this pre-cooked bacon. All you do is take it out and you microwave it. And it's perfect. It's the thinnest bacon. It's the thinnest bacon I can find on the market. and it's super crispy. You just microwave it for literally a minute, and you put it on some paper towels. It soaks up some of the grease. It's literally perfect. It's really perfect for sandwiches. So had that ready. And then I did a New York strip because I'm like, I'm going to get a good cut of beef. So I seared the New York strip. I cut off most of the fat. Actually, no, I seared it and cooked it with all the fat, then chopped off the majority of the fat. The sides of the steak still had a little bit of the fat. So what I did is I ended up chopping off all the sides first, and I gave Chad all of those higher fat pieces, and then I took the leanest pieces that were in the middle, which I knew he wouldn't mind. I'm sure people that love steak fat are always like, that's where the flavor is. That's what my dad used to say. So I think he just probably had more flavor in his sandwich than I did, which is fine. But I have to say, I cooked it perfectly. It was medium. And then I dunked the steak in the chimichurri sauce, put a layer of the steak, and then I put a bunch of bacon slices on it. And as I'm making it, I'm like, this is heart healthy. It was like toasted with the garlic butter. Oh my God, can you imagine? This is not good for you at all. And so here's my heart attack on a plate. But so I put more bacon on Chad's and, more steak. I like I didn't have a lot in my sandwich. It was still a good ratio of bread to meat. Higher ratio of bread to meat is what I like. And he's probably had a higher portion of meat to bread. And what I did was every single bite, I'd put a little bit of that chimichurri sauce, and God, so good. Chad didn't even need to salt his. He's like, babe, this is even better than the Mendocino Farms. Better. Thank you. I was so happy. I was like, it's hard to get a compliment out of him, especially for food. And when he said that to me, I'm like, I did it. Yes. It's such a good feeling when people like my food. So I wonder if I don't know, I think my mom would. I think if she just tried this sandwich, if I didn't tell her what it was, I think she would like it. She's not a huge meat eater. My stepfather would love it. My dad would have died for this sandwich. Oh my God, this would be right up my dad's alley. Well, I wonder if he likes chimichurri sauce. Anyway, I want to make this sandwich for people that I love that like meat, because I'm like, I need to share this with the world. So anyway, that is what I wanted to focus on for my tasty treat of the week. I hope all of you have had some delicious, tasty treats this week yourselves. All right, let's get into my podcast review. Now, I have seen this topic in a couple places, and I'm like, what is this? So, Gary Brecka, that we were, tearing apart with Dr. Ids earlier, he did this topic on, it's called Looksmaxxing, and it's becoming very popular in male culture, like younger male culture. And I'm like, what is this? And so it's basically men trying to improve their looks with simple to absolutely ludicrous techniques. And when I first heard about it, so this is just what women have been doing all their lives, right? Like, men are now caring about what they look, now that there's more pressure on men to also look good and, have a good body, and, and there's all this comparison happening on social media. I'm like, is this just, like women used to try to make their feet smaller. There's women that have had ribs removed to make a smaller waist. I mean, you think about some of the things that women have done for their looks. And now, apparently, men are also getting on this bandwagon. However, there are some really weird things to this movement. And some of it can be really dangerous, I'd say. I think that's really where there are some little bit of differences in why this maybe has a different term. Gary talked about how, looks are largely genetic. Actually, no, this didn't come from Gary. This is kind of like the idea of what Looksmaxxing is all about. It's based on the fact that your looks are largely genetic. Your genetics determine your social outcome. and most people drew a bad hand. Maybe Gary did say that, actually. I think he's just trying to describe it, how, like, if you were born with bad genetics, you have to try to do some of this stuff to try to counteract that, to be popular, to attract women. And some of the things that they were doing, I mean, like, I saw this YouTube video where there's this very handsome guy, and he's English. I don't even know. He's probably AI. Who knows? But he was blowing on this thing. He was like, you see him. He's like, and then he comes and he's like, people say this doesn't work, but look at my jaw. And it's like highlighting how it's forcing his jaw to move in a certain way, as if that's building his jaw so it's more prominent. And, some of the other techniques, pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth for 10 hours a day, which has something to do with how tongue posture can affect palate development. That's a weird one. Some people are measuring the distance between their eyes with calipers, as if there's a specific distance that's supposed to be more attractive. I don't know how you change that. But some people are actually smashing and breaking their jaws and cheekbones in order to change their facial structure. Now, that one sounds extreme, dangerous, counterproductive. Some people are chewing the specific type of gum for 3 to 4 hours a day to grow their jaw muscle. Some people are training specific neck muscles with a weighted harness to try to have a specific look to their neck. So the whole point of this is having more control over the outcome of your social life, having more control over the way that you look and how you present to the world. And obviously we've talked about on this show how there's pretty privilege, right? That attractive people sometimes get benefits in society. And it sounds like this is what that's all about, is how do I get those benefits that all the good looking people are getting? And what Gary wanted to talk about is, look, dude, it's not about your bone structure. It's about your health, the amount of collagen that you have, your inflammation levels, your glycation rate, your biological age, right? Are you aging faster based on your lifestyle choices, or are you aging backwards with your biological age because you're doing some of these biohacking techniques, or you're, taking really good care of yourself? But look, this is a good point, right? How your day-to-day activities, what you put in your mouth, how you move your body, is really what's going to move the needle. I know that there's this Instagram page I used to follow, and it's this guy that, he shows his before, which he was this overweight, pimply kid with bad skin and, just a round face and round body. And now, since he's just been eating whole foods, strictly whole foods, now he has this chiseled neck, chiseled jawline, and he's got this six pack, and to Gary's point, right? That's what he's talking about. Like, this guy has lost all the baby fat. He's gained muscle. His inflammation is very low because he eats, anti-inflammatory foods. And, your skin is better, your muscle tone is better. Like, all of those things improve when you do have good nutrition and you are, resistance training and doing some of these things. So Gary first talked about, one of the things that affects a lot of people is just consuming alcohol. He's like, what that does day in and day out. He talked about this study that was done with this group of dermatologists, looked at, patients that had sun damage, and, which patients were more sensitive to the sun. And the people that consumed alcohol would have more sun damage overall than people that didn't consume alcohol. And the idea that alcohol is making your skin more, sensitive to the sun, and also breaking down some of the natural protectants like antioxidants and not being able to fight free radicals in the air. Yeah, he talked about how alcohol is that natural diuretic and it dehydrates the skin. And so it pulls the water out of your skin, that those skin cells then lose their structure. They're not able to hold their structure, doesn't reflect the light the same way, your skin can become dull. And again, I'm glad I don't drink all the time, like maybe once a week. But yeah, I mean, you see when people are drinkers, like you can see like their skin isn't that good, and I don't know, something happens to the nose when people drink a lot. But yeah, he got into the science of how, you're drinking more, your alcohol is going to trigger those inflammation pathways, which is going to accelerate the breakdown of collagen. And one of the board certified dermatologists that I follow is always talking about this, that like the integrity of your collagen banking. She talks about like all of these different techniques you can do to retain and build your collagen as you age. That's a big part of it. He said alcohol depletes your antioxidants that your skin uses to defend itself. It can affect immune function. And he says like it happens every single time you drink, not just, when you're drinking a lot. He goes, but every single time you have that one glass, you should maybe reconsider, because it is going to affect your skin. And then of course, exercise, right? So many people have talked about if they could only bottle up what exercise does to you. Exercise can negate the negative impact of alcohol. Your skeletal muscles excrete, signaling proteins when you exercise and when you do resistance training. And, these one of the chemicals is those myokines that can communicate with other tissues in your body. He talked about interleukin 15, which does help with collagen synthesis and, again, improving the look and texture and elasticity in your skin. And, again, exercise is, in my opinion, has always been the fountain of youth. And there's real science behind the chemical release and how that impacts not on the way that you look and feel, the muscle that you retain as you age, and the collagen that you retain as you age, or can continue to build. And then of course he talked about the impact of food and how people that eat in excess of processed sugar and ultra processed foods, that is going to also affect the breakdown of your skin, how much visceral fat that you have. And all of this is going to, when people are trying to break their jaw to get a better jawline, it's like, well, actually, if you work out more and you eat right, you might attain that look over time that you are looking for without injuring yourself or doing something that is going to give you exactly the opposite of what you're looking for. So I just thought it was very, very interesting to see that this is happening in male culture now too. There's just all of these expectations. And I think even with all of this awareness of, being kind and not bullying, I think because we're on social media so much and people are using filters, I think there's just this unrealistic sense of what people look like these days. And also just, this keeping up with the Joneses and all of these, you look at these women that are spending $700 at Sephora because these beauty influencers have a 20,000 step process for putting on their makeup. It's like, that is insane. So it's an interesting world we live in, isn't it, today? So anyway, I like to talk about it and analyze it on this show. So that is the show. I hope you enjoyed it today. If you did, please share these clips on your social media to help spread the word. I would love to grow this show. Please leave a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. Please consider subscribing to my premium content wherever you listen to podcasts. Feel free to DM me and follow me on Instagram at the Diet Obsessed Podcast. And until we meet again, I hope all of you have a very balanced week.